Amanda Murphy, and I'm a Bernina expert. I'm over here quilting on the Q20, which is similar to a domestic machine, but even better for quilting. So this is the same long arm that's on the frame. It actually works on the frame. So if you get this format at a sit-down machine and you want to move up to the frame at any point, you can. But I'm going to show you how to use it as a sit-down. And what I love about this machine is it's exceptionally smooth for quilting. So if you're in the market for a machine like this, make sure to sit down and try the different machines because they actually do feel different. And this one's just really smooth. So I'm going to show you how to quilt with it. Right now, I'm using the special feature that differentiates this machine, which is stitch regulation with any foot, any Bernina free motion foot. So I can have stitch regulation with couching, and I can have stitch regulation with rulers. A lot of you write to me and ask why you can't use your stitch regulator with the ruler. Well, the stitch regulator has a laser light, right? That it makes it so you can't get the ruler around it, and it doesn't have the thick lip a ruler foot would have. But this machine can do magic because it can do stitch regulation with rulers. So I'm going to show you that, but I'm also going to show you how to stitch without a stitch regulator if you have a regular domestic, because you can do ruler work that way too. So again, I'm looking at the Rulerwork Quilting Idea Book for ideas, and I'm going to do a really simple design. I'm going just to do pebbles in a row. I do that in the sashing area on a lot of my quilts. Again, we have the Aurifil 43 3-ply thread in the machine, so I'm good there. And I'm going to be using my every circle ruler for Brewer Sewing. It's Good Measure is the brand to ask for. So these are launching at Bernina University, and you'll notice the circles are chunky, and that makes them much easier to hold, right? More surface area means it's easier to hold. They also have a lot of markings, so I'm going to show you how to use the markings in a minute, but they have a lot of markings on them, and they have a non-stick backing, okay? So I'm going to show you how to use these. And let's see, maybe I'll start with this one so it's big enough for you to see. And I'm going to be quilting a line of pebbles. So I can see how to mark for this in the book if I need to, but I'm just going to wing it here because this is not going to be a masterpiece that people are going to keep for generations. So I have my Free Motion Fantasy fabric for Benartex on the frame. I could actually follow this to free motion, and I'll show you how to do that, but we're going to begin with ruler work. I have different modes. This is BSR 1. That means when you stop, it keeps stitching. That's great for designs with quarters. BSR 2, Bernina Stitch Regulator 2, that's what I use for rulers because when I stop, it will stop. And BSR 3 is the basting mode. So that is 2 or 4 or 1 stitches per inch. And then you have manual mode down here, which I'll get to in a while. Usually for rulers, I use the stitch regulator. I love the manual mode, but I usually use it for free motion on this machine. Down here we have a programmable foot pedal, and you can actually change the function of this. I have it on the knot, which is different than on a domestic machine. The knot brings the needle down, the needle up, and the presser foot up. So that's how I'm going to bring up my thread. I'm going to just push the foot pedal button, and it's going to bring up that thread. I'm going to grab it and hold it to the side. Now, you guys at home, I really feel strongly about this. Do not go and bring down your foot right near that ruler. Don't go and start sewing and bring it down right next to it because the chances are you could crash on the ruler, and you really don't want to do that. So instead, bring your foot down first, and I could do it this way on the screen, or I could do it with my foot pedal. Then you can bring the ruler over, okay? Now, if I was on a domestic Bernina, I'd have a 72 foot. Right now, we have the 96 foot. That 96 is only for the Q20 and the Q24. So I'm going to quilt around in a circle, okay? And I'm going to do a few stitches. I'm going to be crossing over my stitches to lock them. So I go around. I'm going to actually clip my threads. Okay, so as you can see here in the book, around a circle, and then you keep going, and then you quilt the other way around the circle. And you'll notice the arrows in the book tell you which way to quilt. It's really important when you're quilting circles to always change directions because then you don't get that little dimple that sometimes happens if you quilt up and then down again. So what I'm doing is I'm quilting counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, and eventually I get a row of pebbles. And what this book shows you is there are variations. You could quilt a straight line, on the top and the bottom of the pebbles, or you could just quilt a row of pebbles. Now, I'll tell you, people would say, well, do you free motion this or use rulers? If they were about 3/4 of an inch or even 1/2 an inch, or even close to, probably 3/4 is the biggest that I'd quilt without a ruler. Then I need a ruler, because as circles get bigger, it gets harder to keep them smooth. Okay, so now I'm at the top of my circle, and what I can do is move my ruler over. And what you'll notice, see how that line, that black curved line, is now sitting on top of my previous stitching? Now, I did black lines because a lot of what I quilt has a white background. I like bright colors, so I did the black lines, but there also are white dots on the vertical and horizontal. Oh gosh, I've been stitching on manual and I didn't even notice. Let me turn it back to stitch regulation so you can see. Okay, so here's the advantage of stitch regulation. You can go so fast on your quilt, right? And the Aurifil thread is not breaking, which is very nice. Now I move up my ruler and I go around again. But I know a lot of you are out on domestics that don't have this capability, so I also want to show you manual mode. So if you're in manual mode, you have to find kind of the sweet spot for you, the place where you are moving so your stitches look like they're about 2.5 to 3.0 on a domestic in terms of length. But of course, your machine settings have nothing to do with that, right? It's how fast you move your hands, how fast the speed slider is on the machine, and how hard you push the foot pedal, okay? So it's usually easiest to match your hands because you have a certain hand speed for every design that feels comfortable. And what I'm trying to do is find that speed where I can stay consistent, right? And I come back around to the top. I was quilting clockwise that time, so I'm going to quilt counterclockwise the next time. Move this up. And again, I'm looking for that smooth speed for me. And it's okay if it's faster or slower than your neighbor. Some people are fast and frenetic and aren't very good at keeping stable. That's me. And then my daughter is really, really steady. It's okay. You can quilt lots of different ways. So you see how I'm going around that way. Now this set of circles goes all the way from a little 1/2 inch circle here. And let me say something about that. When it says 1/2 an inch, that is not the size of the opening. I'm going to just measure this to show it to you. It's actually 3/4 of, it's an inch opening. What the 1/2 inch refers to is the quilted size of the circle, not the size of the ruler. So if I was stitching internally on the ruler and it's a inch opening, it will stitch a 1/2 an inch design because of course I have to subtract a 1/4 inch from each side of my circle. If I was stitching outside this circle, and I'm going to pretend I'm not just going to read that measurement, it's a 2.5 inch circle. If I'm stitching outside, that's going to yield me a 3 inch circle. So you always have to think about that 1/4 inch. So let me end my thread. I'm going to show you how to do it. What I wouldn't do would be bring my presser foot up, bring this over, and then have my ruler back like that. Because remember, I don't want to crash down on my ruler. Be nice to your machine. Instead, I'm just going to let my ruler just sit there. I have my top thread in my hand in a loop, and I'm going to do one more stitch. Just one. If you're on a domestic and you do two, that's the end of the game. You got to pull it out of the machine and find the threads because that will lock the stitch. But just one more stitch, and on this machine, it's just the click of a heel button that does that whole motion. Needle down, needle up, presser foot up, which is really nice. So here, I'm going to bring this up. Okay, but I could also do a bigger circle on the outside of the circle. So I'm going to bring my thread up again. Pull it up, and I'm going to do a few stitches pretty close together just to get started. And if I wanted to go around a big circle, I could do, again, I'm in manual mode, so I got to find that steady speed. And I want you to notice how I hold the ruler if I was on a domestic. When I'm holding the ruler, I am grounded, and I do that by putting a couple fingers from each hand on the ruler and a couple fingers on the fabric. This type of thing does you no good. It's not stable. When you do the ruler in one hand and the fabric in the other. So you want to find a way to hold the ruler, and it might be different depending on where you're stitching on the circle, but you want to find a way to hold the ruler so that you have real stability. The non-stick backing really does help, but you want to be smart in the way you hold the ruler. So if I wanted to do a big circle all the way around, I might be holding a ruler like that, right? Okay, but what if I wanted a bigger circle than this set has to offer? It goes all the way up to 7 inches. It's pretty big, but what if I want something bigger? This is the Every Circle set. My Good Measure Rulers for brewer sewing. But what if I wanted something bigger? I could use these Every Curve set and get a much bigger circle. So this is a 12-inch circle, or this is 10-inch. Let's try this. Okay. And you'll notice there's quadrant lines. I know you can only see a little bit of them, but they're important. So if I drew a crosshairs, and I'm just being messy here, but if I drew a crosshairs, and I'm using the parallel lines on my ruler to make sure they're square. And I'm not going to end my thread because I think you guys can understand this without me ending my thread. And I did a 4-inch mark here because I'm using, well, no, 5-inch mark because I'm using the 10-inch circle. And I put a 5-inch mark here. And I used this curve and lined up the quadrant lines. So if I wanted to do a design like this with interlocking circles, now this design takes a while, but it is spectacular. It takes a while because you have to end your thread. But if I wanted to do a bunch of big circles, I could use the Every Curve ruler to do that. So what I could do here, and I have, again, my Aurifil thread threaded up in the machine, is these little crosshairs will align with the crosshairs you make for the center of the circle. See, here, that gives me my 10-inch curve. So I can quilt around, and then when I get to the end of the ruler, I rotate the ruler again so those lines are on the crosshairs, and keep going. So this can help you make really big circles. Now, why wouldn't you want a ruler that's 10 inches? Like, think about that. Well, most machine beds and most machines can't accommodate a 10-inch quilting template. So you got to be inventive in how you do it, and that's how you do it with these rulers. So I wanted to show you that.